Hello, I'm Deborah Chung, University at Buffalo, the State University of New York. I'm very happy to share with you today about my life in science. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I'm the little one here in this picture, 2 months old already. Beautiful place in Hong Kong. In 1969, the first person landed on the moon. As a high school student, I was so inspired that I decided to come to America for science. So I left Hong Kong at the age of 18. I attended California Institute of Technology, a very good school. And I turned out to be one of the 4 first women graduates of Caltech. Moreover, I was Caltech's first woman engineering graduate. Not my plan. And I got interested in integrated circuits. And I studied under Professor Carver Mead, the father of integrated circuits. Really cutting-edge education, because back in '72, he was already teaching us how to make and design integrated circuits. However, I did some research under Professor Paul Dewey, the father of amorphous metals. That's in materials science. And that really got me very excited about research, which is the pushing of the frontier of knowledge. And materials in particular constitute the foundation of any technology, whether electronics, aerospace, and so on. Also, materials mark the history of human civilization: Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and so on. After graduation from Caltech, I went on to MIT for my graduate studies, also a very good school. And there I fell in love with graphite, beautiful structure and beautiful physics. And I chose to study that under Professor Mildred Dresselhaus, a very prominent carbon scientist. And she and I studied the intercalation of graphite, that is, converting graphite to a metal. And that was actually the start of nanoscience back in the 1970s. I did research in this field for about 15 years. However, I saw my field declining because the applications did not quite work out at the time. I was still very young, so I decided to leave my field of expertise. That forced me to think out of the box and leave my comfort zone. Somehow I got interested in cement or concrete, though I've never mixed it or studied it before. With my background in electronic properties of materials, then I added some short carbon fiber, which is conductive in concrete, and thus I invented smart concrete. And smart concrete is self-sensing. That is, it can sense what's going on in itself without any sensor incorporation. So one monitors the electrical behavior and how that is affected by the load or the damage. And this provides real-time monitoring, which is better than occasional monitoring. Device incorporation actually was the conventional way of getting a structure be able to sense. But such sensor incorporation or embedment makes it hard to repair. You know, it's all embedded. How can you repair the sensor? Here, with no device incorporation in the concrete, we enjoy the low cost, high durability, large sensing volume, and the mechanical performance not being compromised. If you embed something in the concrete, it's like having a hole in the structure, and the mechanical properties would be degraded. There are numerous applications. One of them is building intruder detection, not using camera, which is usurping privacy, but it's weight-based sensing to sense the detector, the intruder. Another application is weighing the trucks as they move. Also traffic monitoring by, again, weight-based sensing of the vehicles. And yet another application is for autonomous vehicles or driverless cars. They need a lot of sensing. Yet another application relates to bridges and high-rise buildings which need vibration control. And vibration, again, pertains to loading. Back in 2007, this bridge suddenly collapsed in Minneapolis. And here, 2021, this building in Miami suddenly collapsed. Now, the material involved is steel-reinforced concrete, seemingly a very matured technology. However, there are serious problems. That stems from the fact that concrete involves sand and stones that are bonded together by cement, and it is not a very strong bond. And so steel is needed to reinforce the concrete. However, the steel gets corroded. Okay? It's good to look at nature. Here is this big rock with this tiny little person standing below it. And this rock has no steel reinforcement and is standing there so sturdily, so stably. Nature's technology is actually very advanced. Another example of nature's advanced technology is Niagara Falls. So powerful, the water falling down, but the rocks behind it is very sturdy. Again, very impressive technology. Another application has to do with oil gas wells, which need concrete to seal it. If the seal is no good, then oil can leak and cause terrible oil spill. Okay? Now, in concrete, one big problem is freeze-thaw damage. That is when the concrete freezes below 0 degrees C and thaws above 0 degrees C. Having cycles of this freezing and thawing, it can cause damage. By using resistance measurement during the freeze-thaw cycling, we are able to monitor the progress of this damage in real time. And shown in thin line is the temperature, going from below 0 degrees to above 0 degrees, quite a number of cycles. And in thick line is the resistance. And you see that the resistance responds to every change in temperature. In addition, the baseline resistance climbs up steadily, cycle by cycle, meaning that the damage is incurred cycle by cycle until it fractures, and that last fracture occurs at the coolest point of the last cycle. The birds are something to be admired at. They don't need any airport runway, right? Go up and down on this wire very comfortably. They are so maneuverable, durable, miniaturized, and quiet. The aircraft is very different. The maneuverability is limited. It needs an airport runway. Also, it's polluting because of the engine, and it's noisy because of the propulsion, and it's also large. Okay? These birds are the geese during autumn migration. Okay? The bird migration routes are shown here. Thousands of miles of migration by flying, and the birds have the capability to navigate. Okay? Nowadays, aircraft navigate, but they need a lot of stuff, electronics, and they use satellites a lot to navigate. But the birds don't have the satellites, they don't have the computers, but they somehow are born with that capability. Even returning, they can. That is, after thousands of miles, they can fly back to the original place. It's quite amazing. Here, this aircraft, just a few months ago in the US, had its door, one of its doors, blown off during flight. Terrible. And here's another incident where this passenger airliner fell down from the sky onto New York City because the tail came off. Over 200 people passed away because of that. And the culprit, now why would that tail come off? It's a fastening problem. Fastening means nuts and bolts. Now, fastening two plates together like this using the nut and bolt. And fastening sounds like an old technology. Well, it's problematic, particularly in terms of aircraft that's made with carbon fiber composite. Now, these composites are wonderful in their lightweight, the high strings, and high modulus. These composites are in the form of laminates, that is, they're in the form of plies, or called laminae. Within each ply, the fibers are in a certain orientation, and in different plies, they are in different orientations. And between the plies, that interface is the mechanical weak link. Okay? And so in fastening, you are squeezing along the weakness direction, squeezing in a direction perpendicular to this interlaminar interface, the interface between the two plies. No wonder there's a problem. Fiber waviness tends to occur in all these carbon fiber composites. You see the waviness. And the waviness causes conductivity in the vertical or through thickness direction, even though the matrix, such as epoxy, is not conductive. And therefore, the resistance in the vertical direction is never infinity. And this contact resistance between the adjacent laminae reflects the integrity of that interface. And this contact resistance is never infinity because there's a degree of fiber-fiber contact across this interface. And so we measured this contact resistance during the squeezing, a number of cycles of squeezing at different maximum loads. And we find that every time we squeeze, the contact resistance decreases. That's because the chance of fiber-fiber contact across that interface is increased. But very interestingly, the resistance doesn't go all the way back. You squeeze and unload, it doesn't go all the way back. However, if you don't use the epoxy matrix, but use a thermoplastic, such as a nylon matrix, it goes all the way back upon unloading. Okay? And that is because the thermoplastic or nylon matrix is tougher than the epoxy matrix, so it's less prone to damage. So it'd be better off if one uses the thermoplastic matrix in place of the epoxy matrix. But epoxy is still the matrix that's used for the aircraft structures. Another nice thing about using the carbon fiber composites to sense itself without device incorporation is that you have a 2D array of these interfaces, see? And so you have a 2D array of sensors, thus allowing spatially resolved sensing. In addition, you have this XY grid of electrical interconnections provided by these fiber groups. So you have sensors as well as electrical interconnections all built in to the structural composite. Next, I'd like to move on to my second topic, which is vibration damping. Okay. Bridges need vibration damping. High-rise buildings need damping. Railroads need both damping and sound absorption. A sound wave is a pressure wave, so it's also a mechanical wave. Aircraft also needs noise reduction, and satellites need vibration damping. Now, damping is achieved by using viscoelastic behavior as provided by ketchup or rubber band. And this behavior, in case of polymers, such as rubber, is due to the motion of the long molecules inside during the viscous deformation. It's just squish it, and then the long molecules just move around, and that movement consumes mechanical energy. And this is the stress versus strain curve. And during loading and then during subsequent unloading, the two curves don't overlap. That hysteresis area relates to how much energy is dissipated. That is, how much mechanical energy is killed. And that is vibration damping. Now, using polymers like rubber for damping is very common, but there are serious disadvantages because the polymers have low stiffness, they have low strength, also poor durability. Our rubber band becomes brittle after a while. Okay? However, using structural materials for damping, something I dreamed of, has quite a lot of advantages. They have high durability, high stiffness, also large volume. This is a structure, so large volume. And this hysteretic area actually is the energy dissipated per unit volume. So having a big volume really helps. Okay? But I have to come up with an alternate mechanism for providing that damping. And I realized that slight slippage at the filler matrix interface, such as this particle reinforcement and the matrix yellow, that interface, very slight slippage at that interface consumes mechanical energy. And if you have a large interface area, then it can amount to quite a bit of mechanical energy dissipation. And this new mechanism is called interface-derived viscoelasticity. I just coined that name myself. And back in 1998, we provided the first report of interface-derived viscoelasticity. And in this first example, we used a cement matrix and then put some silica nanoparticles into here. And because this particle size is so small, you have a lot of interface area, and therefore it becomes more able to dampen. At the same time, these particles are reinforcement, and they strengthen the material. So we have a situation where adding these particles improves the stiffness and the viscoelastic character at the same time. And that was like magic at the time. People couldn't believe me, but now they do. Again, I like to look at nature in terms of bones, like bones in our body. Okay? The bone has a compact part, okay? That's the boundary, and then interior there's a spongy part, okay? With a lot of interfaces involved. This is a kind of a complex design, but nature is really advanced. And the bone is amazingly strong, but it doesn't break so easily. Now I move on to my third topic, which has to do with electromagnetic waves. And these waves include electric field wave and magnetic field wave, okay, both propagating together. Now, there are lots of radio wave and microwave sources all around us. The microwave oven, okay, the cell phones, the TVs, the lamps, the Wi-Fi, all over the place. And it turns out that the radio wave and microwave interfere with electronics, such as this cell phone interfering this computer. Okay? So we need to shield this electromagnetic interference. This interaction between the radiation and the material involves reflection off the surface as well as absorption as the wave goes and travels inside the material. And here's a cable with this brown shielding layer. Okay, this is a cell phone with metal shielding. Okay. Here's microelectronics with metal shielding. Here's a laptop case with carbon fiber composite shielding. Okay. The design principle of electromagnetic shielding materials has long been the electrical conductivity, wanting that to be as high as possible because reflection is enhanced due to the increased conductivity. And therefore, with metals being very conductive, metal mesh is widely used for the microwave oven door as well as for this a room for housing electronics. Even concrete floor can be rendered conductive by the use of conductive additives for the purpose of shielding the certain parts of the building or other structures. For example, transformers are used all over the place to provide electric power for our homes and the city. And the transformers need shielding. And here you see the transformers underground in a vault, is a concrete vault, and you see the car and the road on top. Okay? And this vault needs concrete that's able to shield so as to protect the transformers. And this is inside the vault. Okay? Also, rich people in particular want luxury bunkers to provide shielding to protect their family. Another application has to do with automatic highway. Automatic highway needs lateral guidance of the automobile. That means automatic steering. Okay? One can provide that automatic steering by having within each lane of the highway, say the middle portion, which is radio wave reflecting concrete, or the edge regions being radio wave reflecting concrete, either way. And the car has inside both a transmitter and a receiver of the radio wave. So when the car sways to the edge, it would know it. Okay? While cement-based materials for shielding are conductive due to the conductive admixtures, that is, the additives that you throw in to the concrete mix. My students and I provided the first report of that back in 1989, and we put in short carbon fiber as the conductive admixture. After that, the technology has become better and better, and with the short carbon fiber, 7 micron diameter, we got 26 dB of shielding. With short steel fiber, 8 micron diameter, we get 70 dB, even higher, 70 dB as opposed to 26 dB. So steel fiber is even more effective than the carbon fiber. But this micron diameter steel fiber is extremely expensive. Why are these tiny diameters so important? Well, it's because of the skin effect, which pertains to the radiation penetrating only near the surface of the conductor. See, only the surface region sees the radiation. So if you have a non-conductive matrix and you have in it some conductive filler, whether particles or fibers, and the radiation can only penetrate the near surface region of each unit of the filler. And so the inside region of each filler unit is sitting there doing nothing. So it'd be better off if each filler unit is very small in size. Now, this is microfiber, 7 micron diameter. This is carbon nanofiber, 0.1 micron diameter. We put both in a polymer matrix at similar loading, and we find that with the microfiber, the usual fiber is 23 dB. With the nanofiber, it's 81 dB. So really, having tiny size, in this case tiny diameter, really helps due to the skin effect. The design principles of shielding materials have always long been one thing, which is high electrical conductivity. But I put forth a second principle, namely we want a high surface or interface area due to the skin effect. And that caused a paradigm shift in the design of these materials. And we want to push this even further. This is that same carbon nanofiber that I showed you, lower mag and higher mag magnification. And to push this further, we coated this carbon nanofiber with a thin layer of nickel. Nickel is a metal, so it's even more conductive than carbon. Also, it's magnetic, and both conductivity and magnetic character help the shielding. And this is the nickel-coated carbon nanofiber, and it provides 87 dB. And it is even now, it is the record. It's among the very best filler materials for making composites for shielding, and that was back in 1995. To push this even further, we went to yet another route to maximize the surface area while having the conductivity. And we used graphite flake. And we intercalate the graphite flakes and then rapidly heat that, and that caused puffing up exfoliation. And this exfoliated material, which we call worm, because it looks like a worm, this one piece of the worm is derived from one flake. You see there's a cellular structure. And this is actually the mother of graphene. You can shake this loose to make graphene. And you can have a pile of these worms and then compress them. It forms a sheet called flexible graphite. And there's no binder involved, just the mechanical interlocking between the worms due to the fact that each worm has a cellular structure. And by using this material, we attained 129 dB, high surface area as well as electrical conductivity. And this is today still the record. This was back in 1996. Now I'd like to move on to my fourth topic, which is the overheating of microelectronics and cell phones. Big, big problem. This overheating limits the further miniaturization, limits the power, and limits the reliability. Say you have a microprocessor, which is the heat source, and you have a heat sink. The interface between the two is the thermal contact. Okay? And this thermal contact needs to be good. Otherwise, heat cannot go from the heat source to the heat sink. And people put at the interface a layer of material called a thermal interface material for improving that thermal contact. The design principle for such materials have long been one thing, which is high thermal conductivity. However, I realized that there can be air voids at the interface resulting from inadequate conformability of this interface material. See, you have roughness at the interface, at the surface, right? No surface is ever perfectly smooth, and so you have ups and downs. And this interface material, if it's not conformable enough, it cannot fill all these valleys, and so voids remain, and air is a thermal insulator. And this is really a problem. Even if the interface material is very conductive, if it is not conformable enough, it's really not effective at all. So I came up with a new design principle, a second one, namely the conformability, thereby shifting the paradigm of the design of thermal interface materials. Now, thermal paste is the most common form of thermal interface material. It's got a solid component and a liquid component. I want both the solid and liquid components to be conformable. Okay. And I realized that carbon black is in the form of aggregates of nanoparticles. This is before compression. This is after compression. Just a little bit of compression, even with your finger, it would conform. And this is squishable. It's squishable. And so I invented carbon black thermal paste, which excels due to its conformability, with both the solid and liquid parts being conformable. And this is work back in 2003. So I pioneered these 4 research topics: structural self-sensing, vibration damping through interface-derived viscoelasticity, electromagnetic interference or EMI shielding materials, and thermal interface materials. The disciplines involved in my research involve material science and engineering, mechanical engineering, thermal engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, physics, and chemistry. I study broadly without fear. I make sure that I firmly grasp the basic scientific concepts. I study by myself. I continuously study all these decades. I want to make sure that I understand the technological needs. I want to continuously contribute to my profession in a sustained fashion over many years. Also, I don't want just an incremental advance in technology. I want a transformative advance. And I want to think out of the box, jumping out of my comfort zone. And in tackling each of these 4 research topics, I had to jump out of my comfort zone and learn new things by myself. I prefer to be a leader, not just a follower. I want to communicate well. I thank God that I have a number of honors, such as this honorary doctorate degree from Spain, also this award from the American Carbon Society, also this fellow award from ASM International, and also this award from the State University of New York. And more recently, I was elected a member of the American Academy. And most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I was awarded the President's Medal from the President of the University at Buffalo. All these awards and honors warm my heart, but what makes me most excited is the opportunity to pour out the science from my heart. I pray to God for wisdom every day. He gives me wisdom. He designs my life and gives me creativity. When I cannot solve a scientific problem, I pray to God, and He always answers. My feeling is not, I have climbed to the top of the ladder. That's not my feeling. My feeling is that God is now enabling me to have more chance to honor Him as a scientist. There's spiritual realm and physical realm. Science cannot tackle the spiritual realm, only the physical realm. And there is a spiritual realm. God is a spirit, and each of us has a spirit too. And our spirit interacts with God's spirit. Okay? Another problem with science is that it cannot address how non-life is changed to life. Okay? Life is powerful. This acorn becomes this huge oak tree. Okay? This is the so-called tree of life that Charles Darwin put forth, meaning that the single-cell organism evolves and becomes all these plants and animals, including humans. But the first thing is this single-cell organism. That's the first little bit of life. But where does this life come from? He did not address that. IQ, intelligence quotient, is important. EQ, emotional quotient, refers to the ability to persevere in face of difficulties. SQ, spiritual quotient, refers to having understanding of the meaning of life. All 3 Qs are important. Okay? The word vocation has a Latin root, the vocal, meaning a voice, a call. Who's calling? God. Okay? God is calling us to a certain vocation, a certain life path. And we should have a purpose in life that matches God's perfect plan for us. We must get connected with God. God wants to have a personal relationship with all of us. It's wonderful to be a child of God. God can give you strength beyond your imagination. A life that is according to God's will is the most beautiful life. And I wish you all a most beautiful life ahead of you. God bless.